Jacob, good to see you, man. Welcome to Pop
Hey
Alternatives.
man, hey, what's going on?
Oh man, I'm excited to chat with you about this. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel much. I mean, horror movies have always been around, but there's been this kind of big boom and surge in
Yeah,
popularity of these movies. Like they're the movies to
yeah,
make, they're the movies to star in. What's it like being part
yeah,
of a horror movie at a time where there is a big
yeah.
appetite?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I think it's a good time to be a part of one. I think for me, honestly, like working on movies and whatnot, I feel like every like myth and whatever I've seen in a movie has been debunked for me.
Yep.
But I think doing like a practical horror movie has been like something on my bucket list, and I think it's super fun and like everyone's gonna love watching it. So
100%. It's interesting because you can kind of compare this question to like being a non-funny character in a comedy, but you're playing a,
yeah,
comic relief character in a movie
yeah,
where it's not supposed to be funny all the time, right?
yeah,
Like
right, right,
are,
right.
like fighting for
Yeah,
their lives with these tarot
yeah,
cards. Is that
yeah.
challenging from an acting perspective, or is it more like fun? Like I'm curious about that.
Well, Anna and Spencer, our directors, definitely gave me the space to play and like to find like places where it felt most appropriate.
Mhm.
And they did a good job putting like editing it together to make it seem like it was the story was moving along very well with the comedy, and I think that's important because I think we also enjoy the idea that it's not just horror, but it's relatable because it's funny, and you don't want these
Yeah.
people to die because they're all super great people. So
Mhm.
that's kind of like our thing that we had going on.
Obviously, the life of an actor, Jacob, is like on to the next and going to the next journeys and everything. And then when movies come out and there's like press, you kind of revisit
Yeah,
that you did years ago.
yeah.
How separate are your projects from a mindset or character preparation standpoint? Like, do you bring things from Spider-Man and Reginald to
Yeah,
Taro, vice versa? Like, I'm
yeah.
curious about that.
I think more like the professionalism,
Yeah.
but I think in terms of performance, I think each one is definitely different.
Mhm.
Especially with like tarot, I feel like I did get to be funny in a way where it didn't seem like a pie in the face. Um,
Yes.
and I think that it's like a different sort of like comedic muscle that you do.
Mhm.
But other than that, yeah, it's just like bringing like the things that you've learned from each set in terms of like how you conduct yourself, like how you like there's technical actory stuff like hitting your mark and finding the light and knowing what size frame and like all these things, like what's important. Can I hold back in this scene or should I go all out? Like all that stuff. So yeah.
May 3rd in theaters. Horror movies are
Yeah.
the best in the theaters. The sound,
Yeah.
just the immersive
Yes.
experience and everything.
Yes.
I know, the cast has been around with some press and some promo and
Yeah.
everything. Have there been discussions about the idea of people going to see it in the theaters? Like not just seeing it, but like seeing it
Yeah.
on the big screen. What's that like for you specifically?
It's really cool. I think when you watch, like when you work in film, you sort of just like you kind of turn off that side of your brain where it's like, oh my God, this is going to be in movie theaters. But then you get like a phone call from like your
I feel like you
friend or like
have to though,
family.
right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think like they remind me like, oh yes, like their excitement about it is just I should feel just as excited as them. So yeah, for sure. I would love to like watch it in a big movie theater and watch everyone's reactions.
Mhm. The projects you're working on, man, like I'm a 90s kid, right? So like
Yeah,
Spider-Man and like horror
yeah, yeah,
movies, like I love that when I was, younger and
yeah,
everything, but
yeah.
they were pretty niche, you know what I mean? Like
Right,
I get made
right.
fun of it and everything. Now I'd be like the most popular
Yeah,
kid in the school. Is it cool to see
absolutely.
that kind of evolution and kind of shift a little in those genres that you got to work in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially with Spider-Man and those superhero type of things, you kind of watch like this like fan base who grew up like reading the comics and watching them sort of like grow up with the movies and like and everything that comes out. Horror has been like a popular genre forever for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's awesome to like really be a part of that like that new wave of like horror, like new horror. So yeah.
100%. You kind of I feel like the answer to this question is probably no or not really because you said like you turn it off
Sure.
about like movie theaters, but I'm just curious because like
Yeah.
especially in this movie there are some kind of reactions where you're like oh my god or like whoa, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you ever
Right.
think about the audience watching a movie like Taro while you're making it at all, or does that
Yeah.
happen mainly after you wrap?
No, definitely. I think I definitely believe that we shoot certain things for that purpose, and
Mm,
like, um, I think it's a very important part when you're making a movie or like a TV show because it's just like you want to know what the audience is feeling and like predict like hopefully the right emotions and the right things to make them feel what you want them to feel. So you definitely be thinking about stuff all the time. So
In a lot of ways, so many things, Jacob, happen before you go to camera on a project. Like so many
yeah,
things, great conversation, so much preparation. In a lot of
yeah,
ways, from a storytelling acting perspective, you could see those as two kind of journeys from a storytelling acting perspective, right? Before
yeah,
filming and after. Does it feel like
yeah.
two separate journeys, or does it feel like one big journey with multiple steps?
It definitely feels like one big journey. You know, I think the biggest part obviously is when you're actually making the movie.
Yeah.
But like especially like with my TV show, I watch like what it looks like when it's put together before anyone sees it. So like you think about like what you did that day, and then you see the final product of that episode or like that movie, and you're like, oh man, that's where they took it. Because I feel like you've like as an actor, you kind of forget the little takes that you do that they sort of like layer into
Mhm.
the edit. So um it's definitely one long, arduous journey. And we're just
100%.
like yeah, you know, so
Yeah, it's
like
one of those
yeah,
journeys too where you
yeah,
wait and it's kind of like almost
yeah,
like a deck of playing cards, right? Your
yeah,
cards are whether your
yeah,
projects that you made are coming out separate, or a time like this where you have a few projects coming out around the same time. New
yeah,
Reginald's
for
coming out too
sure.
soon too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is great. There's always going to be learning experiences on sets, man. Whether you've been on a set one time or thousands of times, a
Yeah,
project like Tarot, like we haven't
yeah,
seen Jacob Batalon in a lot of like horror
yeah,
movies. Reginald has those kind
yeah,
of elements, but I'm just curious, were there
yeah.
learning experiences for you from an acting perspective on Tarot?
Oh gosh. I feel like I feel like the maybe the one thing that I learned was that like in a horror movie you definitely scream a lot more like than you do like in any other movie. Like you definitely
Yeah.
like have to prepare your throat for the day because like you gotta like you gotta warm it up. Like you can't just like
Yeah.
go into a scene like yelling and screaming. It'll fuck you up. So like I definitely had to learn to like you had to learn to like do like the teas and like the oils and stuff before crazy takes.
Can you, as Jacob Batalon, do horror movies? Like, can you watch them?
Yeah, I mean, like,
Okay.
don't get me wrong. When I was a teenager, definitely not. And then
Okay.
like got to a point where like I was making movies and I was just like, oh, I like the magic kind of like dissipates for me personally. But like I have like a lot of like friends and family who are terrified of horror movies. I
Yeah.
actually
So they
my
probably won't
girlfriend
be
and
able to
I
watch Tarot.
no,
You're gonna
definitely
have to-
not. They're forcing themselves to go watch it.
yeah,
But
the
this is
first one's
really funny. I took my girlfriend to go watch like a screening of it, and
Mhm.
she like couldn't even like like she like was screaming and like hiding her face. It was honestly really rewarding to see her
It's a
reaction.
lot of fun. I've been kind of
Yeah,
very quickly before a wrap up. I've been walking
yeah,
on eggshells a little bit because you don't want to give much away, but there's
right,
components
right.
of it where it feels like a little bit of like you're in an escape room with these characters. Do you know what I mean by that a
Yeah,
little bit?
exactly, absolutely. And I feel like that's a really important part because they also like everything happens so crazily and so fast in a way that like you're kind of just like holding on to your seat the whole time.
100%. Buckle up. May 3rd,
Yeah,
Tarot in
yes,
theaters. Jacob,
sir.
so great chatting with you, man. Thank you so much for your
Thank you
time.
so much. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.